Chapter 32, Section 7, The Plague. The plague has impacted human history like very few other infections, diseases have been able to. I mean, it's caused more deaths, rewritten history in ways very few things have. Now, yes, if you go and you count up, smallpox, the measles have a high body count, but that's spread over thousands and thousands of years. You know, smallpox, measles, they've been around since pretty much the beginning of us. Plague, this one hits and goes away for a while. It's endemic in certain areas, but when you think the Black Plague that wiped out, you know, almost all of Europe, you know, wiped out a nice chunk of the Middle East and out North Africa and whatnot, yeah, number one with a bullet. It's caused by Yersinia pestis, gram-negative, facultative, aerobic, rod-shaped bacterium. Wow, that's a lot to say. But it's a bacteria, not a virus. Smallpox, measles, viruses. Intermediate hosts for these guys. Fleas. Fleas are the vector that's taking it from one mammalian host to another. Here it is, Yersinia pestis, gram-negative. We can culture it in the lab. Here you see it on red, blood agar. And here's the little bugger that spreads it. The fleas go in for their meal. And like we've talked about with the ticks and the mosquitoes, it goes in for its meal. It spits a little saliva with anticoagulants. And in that saliva, Yersinia pestis. Here you see, Yersinia pestis highlighted with, the fluorescent antibodies. The rat flea was the major vector in medieval Europe. Because remember, at that time, rats were everywhere. Rats were in your house, in your bedrooms. They were everywhere. Anywhere there were humans, there were rats. Rats carried the fleas. The fleas carried Yersinia pestis. Now, it's endemic in the rodents. It's passed rodent to rodent. They call this the sylvatic plague. Rodents get it. Doesn't make them sick, or if it does, it's a low-level chronic sickness that they can compensate for. It's not the drawn-out, drag them down, kill off everybody plague that we associate in humans. The most common form is what is called the bubonic plague. Bubonic, because it caused what they could refer to as buboes. The buboes, the lymph nodes under the jaw, armpits, groin, would swell up. It would literally look like you had a ping pong ball under your skin. Because normally you should not be able to feel your lymph nodes. If you can feel it and it feels like it's about the size of a pea, your doctor will freak out. Whether it's under your jaw, your armpits, your groin, you should not be able to see it. But these would be swelling up, small grape, ping pong ball size that you could see with the naked eye. You didn't even have to palpitate. It would be filled with Yersinia pestis. It would be filled with the dying immune cells that are normally housed in the lymph node. You would start to see hemorrhaging, localized hemorrhaging, splotches. Blood would flow in, the capillary beds would all burst. They would, give you a really dark, bruising look. And the problem is no more blood could flow in and nothing was flowing out. Cells started to die. So you get this dark spots of necrosis, hence the name Black Death. nose, ears, fingers. Different places would show up first. Then you would start to see it. Face, chest, different areas. Bubonic, pneumonic. Spread through the blood. Got into the lungs. So you now have a pulmonary. You're coughing up blood. If you're coughing up blood, it's aerosolizing, and now other people can breathe it in. They will also get pneumonic plague. As it's going from the site of the bite, going bubonic, on its way to becoming pneumonic, you can also have septicemic. You now have Yersinia pestis everywhere in your body because it's traveling through your blood. Remember, anything septicemia means infection of the blood. Here, you look there. Can't tell if it's an armpit. I think it's supposed to be the armpit. You can literally see that is a lymph node. Should be buried under there. You should not even be able to feel it, but here you can see it. It is swollen up so much. And, it can get much, much bigger. The Black Death. Because of the septicemia, because it's in the blood, because it is doing damage, blood flow gets interrupted, stuff can't flow in, stuff can't flow out, cells die, tissues die. Tissues turn black. Anytime a tissue turns black, it is dead. There's no recovery from it. So all of these will need to be amputated. Not only cut right there where the black goes to healthy skin, chances are it's going to have to be cut up much further because this is dead. This tissue right here at the edge on its way to dying, which means all the way up here to the knuckle is also going to start dying soon. So they'll probably lop that off. If not at the wrist, at least pretty much just to the far side, just to make sure. Now, this is a disease that we find associated with rodents. Mice, rats, squirrels, whatever. It's endemic to them. We're the accidental host. It doesn't really want to be in us. Because we really, except in medieval Europe, nowadays, we rarely, if ever, get bit by fleas. Most of us aren't out in the farms anymore. Most of us aren't out in the woods that often. We dip our pets in flea shit, anti-flea stuff to keep them from bringing fleas into our homes. So if we get exposed, it's a dead end to us because we're going to take gentamicin or streptomycin to treat it. Because if you get it promptly, you start to show symptoms or whatever, you promptly get it, mortality rate drops below 5%. You don't get treatments, I've read anywhere from 50 to 80, depending upon who and which of those different types. Pestis produces quite a few virulence factors that allow for it to do direct damage. So this is a highly virulent bacteria. And when you look, rodents, many of them doesn't bother them. Boom, boom, boom. Some rodents, if they get it, they die. And then the flea jumps off the dead onto the next living, passes it around, goes to the next. Oop, died, jump off, hop on. And that's just how it goes. Every so often, that flea, to that flea, guess what? You're warm, you've got blood, it's going in for a meal. You get bit, you will develop the bubonic plague, those buboes, boom, boom. Well, you get bit, it drains, and the first drainage lymph node it hits, that's going to be the first bubo. Spreads to the other neighboring lymph nodes that drain it also, buboes. you start getting buboes under the chin, under your jaw, armpits, groin, well, it's become septicemic. It's going elsewhere. It's exiting out the bloodstream into the surrounding tissues and then carried away with the draining lymph to the, via the lymphatic system. Hence you go from bubonic to septicemic. Bubonic, septicemic, and it gets into the lungs. You start coughing. You notice you're coughing up a lot of fluid, and maybe some small microscopic chunks of your lung, your alveoli, and blood. Well, now you're spreading it. You have pneumonic plague. Pneumonic plague can be passed person to person. Septicemic, bubonic, you need a flea. Flea bites you, flea can go elsewhere. Bite somebody else. But this right here is the only time you can spread person to person. This is also the most damaging. I do believe this has the highest mortality rate.